Hello and welcome to Rubbin Minds. I am your guest host, Hero Daniels. Ebuka Obi Uchendu sends his greetings. We're still celebrating Nigeria at 61. In the words of Nigerian musician Timi Dakolo, we are all we have. We will defend our land. We'll still believe in Nigeria and the promise she holds. Despite all our challenges, we're still holding on to that promise of what Nigeria can be. Yes, we will not be blind to all of the challenges that we're facing, from insecurity. Very recently, Dr. Chike Akunyele was shot alongside 7 others in Anambra State. We're experiencing a food crisis in this nation, and we all know that banditry is also on the rise. The President of the Federal Republic, President Muhammadu Buhari, has addressed some of these challenges in his independence speech, but the big question is, are we doing enough? Joining me in the studio to discuss Nigeria at 61, are we optimistic about a better Nigeria? Is a governance and gender development expert, Dr. Abiola Akiode Afolabi.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Welcome, welcome. How are you feeling?
Well, feeling good, but quite confused about where we are and what hope that we have for the country. Given all the things that we've been seeing around the country in the last few months, it's been quite difficult. The killing of Dora Achilles' husband, and plus the COVID and all the banditry, kidnapping, that we've been seeing. So it's quite difficult to assimilate all this and then still, keep faith, in Nigeria, that we're going to get there. Yeah.
I can imagine. It's been 61 years, and we've had different dispensations. We've had the military dispensation. Now we're in the democratic dispensation. If you were to assess our progress so far in terms of scorecard, what would it be?
Well, I started off as a students' union leader. So meaning that while the military dispensation was there, I was part of those who were in the trenches, trying to make sure that we have a country that is better for all of us. I was at the Obafemi Awolowo University there, and I was a students' union leader. And if you compare the sacrifices that we made at that time, thinking that when we are like 50 years old or thereabout, things should be better for the country. If you sit back and you assess, you see that we still have a very long way to go. And that's why I said, it's to a large extent disheartening, that we're still struggling with what democracy should be, as a country. At 61, yes, we have grown in age, but I am not sure whether it's commensurate with what you would expect that would have, where would have gotten to as a country.
True.
There still seems to be a whole lot of problems in terms of even accountability processes in the country. It looks like a lot of things are going on, but nothing seems to be working effectively. And I think that that's where the dwindling hope comes in. When are we going to get it right? So is it about leadership? Is it about the people? So it's about what? And we don't seem to have any other country to go. So this is all what we have, just as you said, Dakolo said. And so we need to find a way, to address. So the hope there is that we have great people with great potentials. I've seen young people. I also lecture at the University of Lagos, so I know and I see that there's great hope for the people that I see, that I speak to on a daily basis, who are young people, and I also see a lot of things done by, Nigerians across the world. So there is hope. But we need to manage that hope in a manner that will be able to achieve, the kind of Nigeria that we want. And I think that's where the challenge is, and that's what we need to address.
Okay, so we're going to speak more about accountability, because you made mention of accountability. And the president made a statement that what he has achieved in the past 6 years, no other administration has ever achieved it, trying to get Nigeria back on track. But we're going to get to the president's speech. Right now, I want us to connect to our Abuja studio. We have Rinsola Abiola, an advocate for gender equality. She'll be joining us in a bit. Hello, Rinsola.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. So our president, centered on a couple of issues. He addressed certain issues that we're facing as a nation, from insecurity down to social media, down to the need for us to be united as a country, and what the federal government is doing about the agitators, that has the agitators in different regions. So what are your thoughts on this president's speech?
First off, regarding the president's comment about his administration doing, what no other administration has done within the time frame, I think that's a comment that would have to be situated within the context of events that followed his emergence. We've had to deal with a global pandemic. We've had to deal with dipping oil prices. These are things that have, necessitated the readjustment of our priorities and ambitions as a nation. Yet, we can also look at initiatives, very ambitious initiatives, like the social investment programs, and commend this administration for what they've done so far. The very aggressive infrastructure investments. We're looking at some things. You mentioned accountability earlier, and well, I think for the first time in a bit, we can actually point to things that our resources are being invested in. And then, of course, there are issues that we still need to deal with. There have been a lot of investments in social issues, like I said earlier. Take the issue of Empower, look at the school feeding programs, the social investment programs, giving stipends to the poorest of the poor. But, there are other issues that we still need to make investments in, although a lot of work is still being done regarding those. Talking about insecurity now, talking about unemployment. These are issues that have been compounded by what's going on at the moment, a number of factors that need to be addressed that are not particularly unique to us as a country, but they've had a lot of impact on the challenges that we're facing. So within that context, I would say that so far, well, I wouldn't rate the administration poorly, but at the same time, there are steps that still need to be taken regarding other things, and I believe that in due course, we'll begin to see better results in those areas.
All right. A follow-up question. You made mention of some of the amazing things that the administration has done. You made mention of, the Empower, feeding of school children. Some people have been of the school of thought that they sort of doubt how the reach of these programs are in terms of implementation. Do you have maybe a bit of statistics as to how far and the reach of the implementation of these programs are?
Well, there are beneficiaries. If there was a delay, to the best of my knowledge, in getting beneficiaries from certain states, I think it was because what needed to be done at the time wasn't based on, putting a database together and getting people on the list. But I believe beneficiaries for the social investment programs, for instance, are drawn from pretty much most states across the country, all over the country. There's the spread, it's gone round. There are Empower beneficiaries all over the country. We've had a number of young people benefit from other programs. Take the Youth Investment Fund, for instance, and a couple of other initiatives introduced by this administration. We also have a number of states doing what they can in their capacity to develop youth potentials, especially. And these are ideas that I believe can be improved upon. There's still a lot of work to be done, like I said earlier.
All right. Thank you so much, Rinsola. I'll get back to you in a bit. I'd like to connect to Mr. Collins Nweke. He's a global affairs analyst and is joining us all the way from Belgium via Zoom. Mr. Collins.
In the restaurant.
Good afternoon to you.
Sister Dalton.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you so very much for having me.
All right. So what are your thoughts on our journey so far as a nation?
And she embraced me like she knew me.
Well, I do have some mixed feelings. If I may begin with the summation of, the last speaker from Abuja. Yes, indeed, she was spot on the slight improvements she talked about as a consequence of, some of the initiatives, some of the re-engineering that government has made. And I say this because the latest Human Development Index actually points to the fact that, Nigeria actually made some improvements between 2015 and 2019. But then that still places Nigeria as 161 country out of 189. That is very, very abysmal. Now, it is very, very abysmal if you consider that Nigeria was meant to be the leader in Africa, okay, being the largest, black population in the world. They are supposed to provide leadership. And pendling around the bottom of the ladder is actually not good enough. That's number one. Number two, yes, as nice as those figures may be, and as indeed captured by the last speaker as they may be, the man on the street, does not feel this, slight improvement. So the point you ask yourself is, if it hasn't trickled down to the average Nigerian, what are we talking about? So what we're talking about is that Nigerians are dying they are dying en masse. The poverty level is actually the highest that it was ever in the history of Nigeria, at least in the past 61 years. So we have nothing to jubilate about the slight improvement that still places Nigeria 161 country out of 189. The government has got to roll up its sleeve. The government has, got to deliver on the promise that brought it to power, which is fight corruption to a standstill and put Boko Haram out of business. On both scores, the government has failed and failed woefully. And what we have seen is indeed that these issues are what are actually hampering economic progress. Those are the things that make people feel insecure and completely disenfranchised, in the nation state called Nigeria. Yes, there have been, announcements made, for example, about the infrastructure, presidential developmental infrastructure plan. That is fine, but we are not hearing it for the first time because the president talked about resuscitation. It is not a new initiative. And so I can go on and on about those recycled or announcements of recycling of policies that existed previously. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't trickle down to the man on the street, Nigeria is still going around in a vicious circle.
Okay, so from what you've said so far, I could pick two words: accountability and implementation. I'm going to get back to you in a bit. I want to quickly speak with Dr. Afolabi. From our last speaker, you could see that he's very concerned about how much of these policies make it down to the common man. Yeah. So that talks about accountability. How accountable has this government been?
Well, I really share his concerns, and I also want to say that from what Rinsola said in terms of the kind of initiative that this current government had put in place, the social investment and what have you. The truth of the matter is that, and just as the last speaker said, if it's not addressing the major problems of Nigeria, then we are not seeing it as such. Because I don't know how we can have an effective social investment processes in this country without any form of data. So you hear people say, we're not sure whether this is happening. We hear people say this is being politicized and what have you. So there's a problem with that if we are not addressing it holistically. In countries where they respond to social security, in America, if you have a number, people get to know who you are, what you're doing, whether you are unemployed, whether you need, to be assisted. We can't be addressing the problem, trickle by trickle and think that we can solve it. So we must have a very holistic, perspective into addressing the problem of Nigeria. And that's why the social investment is not working as effectively as it could be. We don't even have data to back it up, that it is effective. So there is a problem, with that. So the question of accountability is also there. I do not see any progress if we don't address some three key issues. And I think that's also one of the reasons why people said, why I feel that the president did not cover a lot of areas that Nigerians will be. How can we be discussing when the doctors are on strike? There's a serious public health problem, and the doctors are not there, to address the problem. So we are not addressing the question of health. So there are issues of accountability around health. The issue of insecurity is also an accountability issue. There's a lot of corrupt practices, and that's why you see explosive bombs entering the country on a daily basis. And we're not asking that right question about how do we then deal with that? It's an accountability accountability issue. What is the process? How are they entering the country? How many routes do we have in this country? Over 800. So what are we doing, to ensure that we have people who can, man and woman, those entries into the country, So there is insecurity from Chad, from Sahel, they come into the country. So what are we doing? I think those are the key issues that we need to address. There's no way we can have social investment if we don't address all these people, all this issue. So the government will see that connection between the problem of the people and also thinking that we can address it, piecemeal, and so we need to be very realistic about it. And if we are not, that means we are not accountable. We are not exemplary. We are not having a leadership that's listening to the people and also trying to address, the problems of the people. There are a lot of concerns for Nigeria. Unemployment is huge. I heard the president talking about 10 minutes. So why didn't we start yesterday? Why are we starting now? And of course, there's a whole lot of work around 2023. So is that what it's all about? So there's a need for us to actually identify our priorities as a country and see in actual fact what do we want to address now, what's our concern, and how do we go about it. And I think that the government of the day is not doing that appropriately.
Thank you very much. We're going to get back to that because you've identified the problem, you've identified the loopholes. I want us to look in depth as to how do we as a people, as a nation, how do the institutions that are in charge of making sure that the leaders are doing what they have to do? How do we strengthen these institutions? How do we as individuals, as citizens, demand accountability? But let me quickly get to Rinsola. So, Rinsola, how would you say the youth's participation has been so far? And for some of our youths that are already in power and are already, doing what they can in different offices, how far have they fared?
So in the last administration, the last assembly, we were able to get the Not Too Young to Run bill to scale through Parliament, and the president assented to it, and that enabled a number of young people to vie for elective office. Now, many of them didn't make it through, but many did benefit from the legislation, not just by running, but also by making it through the election process. And we have a number of young people in the House of Representatives. We have a number of young House of Assembly members across the country. We also have young people in non-elective positions working as special assistants, as aides to elected officials. And I would say that the level of youth participation, it's not bad, it's not abysmal, but we could do better. But in doing better, we also need to look at the hurdles that young people need to scale through to be able to thrive in politics, to be able to run for an election and win. It costs a lot of money. There's the issue of resources. There are internal party issues that need to be resolved. Yeah. There's a lot of work that actually needs to be done from the bottom up. Talking about young people who actually did scale through, I have a number of examples actually across states. There's a young rep from Ondo, Honorable Adefisoye. He's done quite well with, delivering on dividends of democracy to his people, so to speak. We have a number of other young reps from the state. I think Honorable Tunji Ojo done really well with massive developments within their constituencies. We have other young, relatively young legislators from other parts who have been quite accountable, in giving account of their stewardship to their people. And we have others, women politicians who are doing better with connecting with young people. We have young people organizing themselves into movements to better hold our leaders accountable. So I always say that we're not all going to be politicians, but we can all be active citizens. And a number of young people are really stepping up. Even if they're not being politically active, they're being more responsible as citizens in discharging their duties and holding their leaders accountable, in following up, campaigning for voter registration. Yet, we could do better as a country. Nigeria has a large youth population, and students alone make up more than 20% of the voter register, I believe. So if we're able to harness these numbers and actually put them to good use, the youth bloc alone in the voter register can deliver a presidential candidate if we put our numbers to good use. So I think we need to be more effective with how we organize.
You spoke about youth participation in 2023 and how the youths are forming movements and coming together to make sure that, we have an active citizenry. Speaking about the elections, how important is our participation as youths, and how do we get to the grassroots? Because the truth of the matter is, some people are of the school of thoughts that, you know, especially regarding social media, that sometimes when the youths want to speak up or when they want to voice certain things, that there's a level of censorship. You know, there's a level of clamping down. I've had several reports where people have gone on social media and you see they say certain things or they try to organize certain movements, all in line of active citizenship, and you see that perhaps their bank accounts has been blocked and everything. So how would you sort of encourage those people that are saying that, you know what, we're not going to participate in government because participating in politics and being an active citizen might actually not make us, you know, might not make us feel safe? So how do we encourage those youths out there that don't feel safe in this country?
Well, I would say that there are many platforms that one could work with, and there are many ways that one can participate. I started out with youth activism, was involved with the politics of the Youth Council for a bit before making the transition to mainstream politics. And I've remained at the intersection of politics and civil society since then. And we have quite a number of young people who equally work in that space. We have our colleagues, counterparts who are not in politics, but then we do engagements and consultations within the political framework within government, and our colleagues do the engagement outside of politics within civil society. Like Not Too Young to Run, for instance, took a lot of cooperation with young people in politics and young people outside of politics within civil society, young people within student movements. And there are actually many ways that a lot of young people can participate. You can join a political party. You can register to vote. Your vote has a lot of power. One vote I think in Sokoto, the election was won or lost by barely 400 votes. Each vote counts, each vote makes a difference. And one thing I always try to make young people understand, especially those with an interest in politics and organizing, is this. There's a lot of talk about how certain kinds of people maybe have a lot more attention or a lot more access to politicians. But at the end of the day, politics is about numbers. Politicians respect people who vote for them. Politicians respect people who can deliver on votes. And once young people are able to transition from mostly just talking about things that we're not satisfied with to organizing effectively in such a way that we're able to deliver on, say, a set number of votes and actually to be recognized as the power block that we actually are and that we have the numbers to be, I think the dynamics of how we interact and how we engage with politics and politicians will change considerably. So I think that's one thing that I believe we should explore. And it's also important to keep in mind that minus organizing for rallies and supporting causes and perhaps coming together occasionally when there are things that we're passionate about, a lot of this is not going to translate to much if we're not channeling that energy to the democratic process and to actually voting. It's very, very important. Because if we come out in large numbers when things happen that we're not satisfied with, but we don't come out in those numbers when it comes to time to vote, if enough of us don't have voters' cards, if enough of us are not engaging the system, if we're not trying to hold our elected officials accountable, it's going to be a big challenge, being taken seriously as a power block. And I'm hoping that, there are a number of young people leading the conversation in this regard, and I'm hoping that come 2023, minus just young people coming out to vie for elective office, we also see a sharp increase in the number of young people who actually do vote and not just get PVCs for identification purposes, for instance.
All right, Ruin Sola. Well said. I'm going to get back to you on another issue, which is the social media and, of course, the president's comment about the Twitter and how the conditions Twitter needs to meet before the ban is lifted. But I want to connect with Mr. Nweke now. Mr. Nweke?
Yes, I'm here with you.
All right, so you made mention of poverty, and in 2018, we're all aware that Nigeria overtook India as the poverty capital, and not so much has changed. In fact, more people were slipping into poverty by the day. How do you think we can holistically address the issue of poverty? Because trust me, with the current economic situation, nobody really wants to be in that state.
Dr. Abiola actually captured it in her intervention when she talked about a departure from the piecemeal reactive approach to an approach that is strategic and holistic. Now, what we have today is a patchwork of, policies, some of which had been tried and found to be ineffective and ineffectual, and now they are being, exhumed from the graveyard to want to give it a second life. It just doesn't work that way. Governance is actually, predicated on thorough thinking, data, but also serious strategizing, consultation, and all of that. I mean, Rinshola also touched on that when she talked about the fact that we all can be politicians, but there are quite a number of people who are active in the non-state activism area. Those are assets, okay? And those assets in terms of consultations, research work, and all of that, they will be very, very useful. So I believe that Nigeria should consult more. They should have a more proactive approach to, poverty, eradication than what is happening today.
Thank you very much.
Corruption remains is very, very serious issue.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Nweke. Dr. Folabi, in 60 seconds, I wish there was more time. There's so much to discuss. We haven't even talked about other areas and other sectors that, needs discussing. But just in 60 seconds, what is the way forward?
Well, I think we need empowered citizens. Accountability is a two-way thing. It's the supply and the demand side. So we need to have an empowered citizen that can make demand, effectively from the supply side. And that would address a lot of our problem in terms of the kind of leadership that we want, that can inspire, that can model the way. If we have that empowered citizenry, it will help to give us a better democracy, and we can have a better Nigeria.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Abiola Rinsola, Abiola, and of course, Mr. Collins Nweke. Thank you so much for joining the program. It's still Rubbin Minds, and the show continues after the break. Stay with us. We're still celebrating Nigeria at 61, and I know that a lot of us have mixed feelings about the independence, but one thing is for sure, we are a nation filled with hope. And of course, if there's any sector that is doing us proud, it is the creative sector. And with me in the studio is an entrepreneur and an actor extraordinaire. I would usually say I'm a fan, but I think I'm beyond the fan at this point. Ladies and gentlemen, Adeyemi Okolawon in the studio. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well.
You're looking good. You're looking good.
Thank you. Trying to be like you.
Very fashionable. So I'm a huge fan of your works, and I'm not referring to your great acting skills. I'm actually referring to your photoshopping skills, because I really don't understand why why do you like trolling other celebrities by photoshopping their pictures? That was the first question I said I was going to ask you today.
So, true story. I was minding my business in my house during the whole pandemic period. And then some of my friends started looking for my trouble online. They would just do things. I said, Mofe Duncan, Kule Remy and Co.
Yeah.
And I decided to show them, for the first time that I also know how to do these things. And since then, I've just been having fun.
Amazing. So you've had quite a journey. From theater, you moved on to movies. You are a chemical engineer, if I'm correct.
Yes.
You studied chemical engineering.
Yes, I did.
So how does one go from being a chemical engineer to an actor?
So while I was, studying engineering on campus, I had my first business. I started my first business. I was selling bread and cake on campus. Because at the same time, I joined a drama group on campus, a faith-based drama group on campus. And I graduated from school. The business led me into a sales and marketing career for about 8 years. And I also continued to act in church drama for many years, for as long as that. Eventually, sometime in 2010, somebody mentioned an audition. I went to the audition. I got 2 roles from one audition, for 2 different films. And then that turned into another film and another project. By 2013, I was the head of marketing for a company called OLX.
Wow.
And I got the opportunity to be on a production called Giddy Up.
Yeah,
yes.
The series, very popular.
Exactly. And I quit my job to take a year off to act. You know, when I was done, I figured I would go back to work. And that was 8 years ago.
Oh, wow. Amazing. And what an incredible journey you've had so far. I'm going to get back to you. We need to talk about, you know, how much the creative industry is doing for us as a nation and what a huge PR. You know, we have the Wizkids, the Burna Boy, you know, the actors all doing us proud. But before we get to that, I would also like to introduce an actor and, of course, a musician extraordinaire. Ladies and gentlemen, Niola. How are you, Niola? Oh, we just lost Niola, so I'm going to get back to you, Deyemi. So, how did we go from being an industry that was relatively, you know, sort of just in the confines of Nigeria and maybe Africa, yeah? Now Nollywood is global. We have a lot of Netflix deals going on. How would you describe Nollywood's journey so far?
Okay, so I wouldn't pretend to have enough experience to speak on such things. I mean, there are people who've been here for so many more years, but from what I've observed, one of the things that I would like to correct is this idea that Nollywood just became a global phenomenon. Unfortunately, we do not live in a country that values data and that captures enough data, because what we will have seen is that Nollywood for a very long time has been a global phenomenon. Our movies have actually been consumed by Black, you know, people all over the world. And so that has been a very thriving underground, so to speak, economy, but we never really captured it. We were never able to. I think up until when Goodluck Jonathan's administration, there were some calculations being done with our GDP, I think, and then we recognized the input of not just the entertainment industry as a whole, but Nollywood as well. And then, of course, people now started to pay attention. And once people start paying attention to something, investors decide, you know, this is a viable place to be. As you see all these things happening, of course, doors are opened up to more and more to be happening. You know, we have Netflix looking at Nigeria critically, understanding that, okay, this is the contribution that Nollywood has to the world of entertainment, and they're coming in. Amazon as well is opening up shop in Nigeria. We're looking at people like companies like Disney Plus and HBO. You know, everybody is trying to come to the country because someone took the time to measure and give us the statistics of what our industry was adding to the economy.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I want us to address something, and I think it's quite a conversation. In the Nollywood industry, it seems like there are certain stereotypes. So some people would be referred to as the cinema faces. You have people that are referred to as the Asaba faces, quote and unquote, and then there's another segment that they say, oh, these people, they're strictly Iroko and everything. So what do you have to say about the click system? And correct me if I'm wrong, does the click system exist? Have you heard this before?
So I've heard insinuations about click systems, and I understand in some certain areas where that might be coming in. But even at that, and I'll explain it in two different ways. The first is that you're absolutely wrong about that concept of, you know, there being, you know, certain faces for certain categories. It's like a brand, you know, an organization, for example, I don't want to mention any, but that has different products, and those products are targeted at different market segments. You know, and so, you know, based on who you're selling to, if you're going to select a brand ambassador for the East, you know, you're not going to take somebody from the South or from the North to represent that brand in that space. You're not going to do that. You know, so when producers hire actors, especially, you know, they're looking partly at the talent of the actor and also the brand. That's the eyeballs that brand, that actor, attracts to the movie. So if there are people who have grown a fan base that tend to go to cinemas, yes, then you're more likely to hire an actor that has that kind of background, that has that kind of following. If what you're doing is you're producing content for a specific market, you know, whichever area of the country, or even for YouTube or some of these other platforms that we have, you're going to look at hiring some other kind of actors. And that's really what's going on. But to talk about there being a click system, the truth is you're going to work with people that you trust over and over again. I've worked with the same directors multiple times because they trust me to deliver, and I trust them, you know, to take care of me when I'm on set. You know what I'm saying? Because as an actor, I'm in front of the camera, I don't know what's going on, and I need to totally trust, you know, my director, you know, and everybody else on set. And I would love to work with those people over and over again. And that's where you see friendship and professionalism. I think I'm about to do my 13th Ebony Life project. and that's come from, you know, just being professional and also finding value, you know, from the company. Again, you know, it's been a fantastic relationship, and there's several companies like that I've worked with.
All right, amazing. Speaking about, you said something about when you've worked overtime with producers, you know, they just trust you and they want to work with you. And I think I agree with you, because I've seen you on several projects, and your latest being Swallow
Yes.
on Netflix. We'll be connecting with your co-star now, Niola. Hello, Niola. Welcome to the program.
Hi.
How are you today?
Hi, everyone. Hi, Demi.
Hi, Tolani.
Sawo.
Okay. I must say that the chemistry in that movie, it's amazing. Yeah, I'm talking about, you know, two of you.
Yeah,
the way you said Tolani, like she's your wife in real life. So how's the experience been? Correct me if I'm wrong. Did you recently have a crossover from the music scene to Nollywood, or are you experimenting with Nollywood, you know, because you are still a musician? What's up with Niola now?
I mean, I've always wanted to do some form of acting. I just wasn't sure when and how. And so when the opportunity came, at first I was afraid and I was nervous and I wanted to chicken out. But then I thought, why not? It turns out that maybe I'm supposed to be doing this.
Okay. And you actually had an incredible performance. I saw the movie and it was really mind-blowing. Yeah, you had an incredible
Thank
performance. And so what happens to the music now?
I mean, like I always say to everyone, I could never not do music, because music is a part of me. So I've always still done music on some level, even though I kind of pulled away a little bit from releasing like projects and that for about 3 years now, which, you know, there was very good reason for that. I don't know if you know, I had lost both my parents in a very short period of time, and I felt like I needed some time away. And to that effect, I made a song last year in December, which was released, called Olumurati. So I've been working on projects, like I worked on the music of Swallow with Kent Edunjabi. I worked on all the songs on Swallow with him, kind of A&R the project for Swallow. And I also did something on King of Boys and some other movie soundtrack. So it's still, you know, it's still all intertwined.
All right.
And then someday soon, I can't tell you when, I will put out music of my own again.
Okay, so
Right now,
we're going to hold that.
I find myself.
There's an area I want us to go into now. So in every industry, you know, you hear people say that, oh, I've made it this far because I've paid my dues, you know. And I'm trying as much as possible. Let's see how we can demystify what paying dues, quote and unquote, is. I'll make a quick reference. Very recently, I think Toke Makinwa made mention of something. She said that young acts should learn to put in the work. You know, that even our great Wizkid at some point had to carry speakers and buy amala for DJs just so they play his song. All right? I'm just paraphrasing, yeah. All right? Those might not be her exact words, but that's as reported. You know, so, and what she was trying to buttress was the fact that a lot of people just want the fame, but they're not willing to put in the work and also make certain sacrifices. So, what is paying your dues? Can you demystify that? Because I hear it all the time.
Yeah.
I've paid my dues, we're paying our dues. What does it mean?
So there is a... It's taken me 8 years to become an overnight success. It's taken me 8 years to become what people are referring to me as an overnight success. People don't see the toiling. They don't see the frustrations. They don't see the hard work. We're talking sheer hard work. They don't see the moments where you're working for virtually nothing. The first film I ever did, I got paid 10,000 naira. The next film was 15,000 naira. They took me to Ilorin to go and shoot for 4 days. I had a business that I was running. I've also had, you know, a career, you know, during that same time. But I mean, all these years has really just been honing my skills and then proving myself. So it's two parts. It's honing my skills to make sure that I get better and better, and just, more than just being an actor, it's adding value to the producers, beyond acting. And I read up on everything, that concerns film so that I can be a better actor. And over time, what I've seen is that, again, as I said earlier on, people trust you more. The more people trust you, the more they want to reward you. The more work you have, the more people find you to be valuable. And so it's a lot of work to succeed in any sphere of life. It's not just music, it's not just film. In any sphere of life, it takes a while. And looking back, I was just thinking about this a few days ago. I look back and I realized all the times I was frustrated at the quote-unquote lack of or slow progress was just a time that I needed to be patient. If I could have seen what was going to happen now, I promise you it would have been easier to just relax and not give myself too many headaches.
Okay. It's a good thing that you're not relaxing. Niola, what are your thoughts?
I'm just going to piggyback off what Dayami has said. You really just keep honing your skills. Like for me, when I took the break, the time I did, it was important to me to come back and be my true, authentic self, in the sense that I wasn't just making music because this was where I found myself. It was important to me to do what was authentic to me, because the intention of your art is also important. Like Dayami said, like when people trust you, when people, how did you say it again? He said people will trust you more, and when people trust you more, they start to give you things to do. So when you yourself are able to find out what you're supposed to be doing, and you're comfortable and confident enough in it, like the rest is easy. So I agree with that. So paying dues to me is necessary. Is basically the time that you have to put in, the times where you have to. Sometimes you doubt yourself. Sometimes you're so hard on yourself. Sometimes you deny yourself. You deprive yourself of certain things. And even though people are yapping on the internet and saying all sorts of things, you know what you're doing and what you're working on, because you're just like, the end will justify the means. The end will justify the means. So yeah, that's what I think.
And that is okay.
There's a caveat to that.
So before we get to the caveats, I just want to ask a follow-up question to Niola.
Okay.
So Niola, there's probably a young girl or a young boy out there watching us right now, and he or she is saying that I've been to countless auditions and I don't get these roles. I've gone to several auditions. Personally, myself, I've also attended a lot of acting auditions, like, about 5 years ago. And, and I didn't really get the acting gigs. Thankfully enough, I got a lot of hosting gigs, yeah? So for that one person out there watching you right now, what would you tell them and what would you say to encourage them to keep the hope alive?
Keep working, don't stop. If it's what you think you should be doing, like I always say, if you don't believe in yourself enough to take a chance on yourself, why would anybody do that for you? So, and I see a lot of people too, and this goes for music as well, music and movies. People would send you messages and say, oh, I want to act too, please help me. Like, you don't go to the actors, or you don't go to the musicians, you go to the directors, you put your eyes and your ears out for auditions, you go to the studio and make a demo, and then now you have something to share with a record label owner, or maybe even a musician. So these are the things, like put in a little bit of work. I like you were saying, Tope said, a lot of times people are not even willing to put in the work. And going for all these auditions or writing all these songs, are you sure that you've sharpened your skills enough? So if you know that you have, just keep at it. And pray to God. If it's what you're supposed to do, then it will happen. Okay,
so Dayami, we're going to get to the caveats now.
So first, the one thing I would like to say is, don't let anybody tell you what the dues you're supposed to be paying are. That's none of their business. You decide what dues you're paying. Figure out what it is that you should be doing and do it. Because people try to take advantage of this idea of paying dues and use the young up and coming actors or musicians. They really do try to take advantage, and I really I'm against that. And the other part, just to add to what Neola had just said, I didn't do too well in school. For some reason or the other, I came out with bad grades, and I was forced to go the route of results. I could never really just submit my papers or whatever, my application for a job. You know how they do 2-1, first class? Nah, I could never do that. So I went the route of results. I had to go on the streets and prove myself. I was in sales, so I would, every year, I could tell you, this is what I did for that company. I raised this amount of money, I sold this amount of products. And eventually, that opened doors for me. I mean, I've gotten job offers from big financial institutions based off of the results that I had. What that means is, for example, now, you know how they open up application, 10,000 people would put in an application for one job. But because I've proven results, and what they're looking for really is results, I will skip over 10,000 people and get a job offer before they do. They don't have the results to back it up. I came into Nollywood with the same idea. There's a difference between working hard and working smart. And a lot of people go to auditions thinking that that's paying the dues, that's doing the hard work. Yes, there's a place for that, but also understanding that at the end of the day, what you need to do is prove results. I did a lot of short films when I was coming in, and I would have those short films on my phone. I meet a producer or a director. Oh, hi, my name is DME. I just finished this short film. And of course, because it was something that was really amazing, it caught their attention, and they wanted to have a conversation with me and continue. I learned that networking with the right people, and not networking to, I don't understand. Not networking because you're trying to get into people's good books. Actually proving value to them, did more for me than going to all the auditions in the world. I just wanted to add that to what Neola. And by the way, Neola, you're an amazing actor. You should continue doing this. She was beautiful as Teniola in Swallow. I literally fell in love with her. So if you say there was chemistry, yes, there was chemistry. Sonwo was in love with Teniola.
Are you guys hearing?
I could tell. I just really wish we had more time.
Thank you so much.
I wish we had more time. And by the way, my favorite character of yours is Mr. Fashional in King of Boys. I could relate.
Least favorite character.
I know
because
after I watched King of Boys and I saw you play that role, I don't know, whenever I see you, I just see Mr. Fashional. I know that's not a good thing, but you played it so effortlessly. And I'm like, I never knew DME could be this stupid. Because, the character was a bit stupid,
Quite.
He also delivered on the job,
I've never been that kind of submissive. Like, I've been so alpha my entire life.
Yeah.
Taking on that character was one of the most uncomfortable things I've ever done. But I loved the experience to step farther away from myself than I ever had before. And it was a great experience. So please say thank you to Kemi Adetiba for the vision and the foresight.
Kemi, if you're watching, a big thank you to you. Neola, please, in 60 seconds, what is your final thoughts?
The movie Swallow has given me a huge opportunity to find out things about myself that I never knew that I had. Big ups to Kunle Akolaya. Big ups to Sonwo. I'm never going to call you DME again. I don't know how it's going to happen. Big ups to Sonwo, because while we were on set, he was giving me tips. He would tell me, oh, this is why you have to do this here, and this is why you have to do that. So it's been a very interesting experience for me, and it's one of those things that will forever mark and shape my life, and I'm so thankful. Also to everybody who has said something positive, the review, the feedback, I'm so thankful. Please go and stream the music. The music is also there. All the songs that were in the movie,
all right,
they're on all streaming platforms. You can listen to every one of them. Thank you so much. Channels.
Thank you, Neola. Thank you, DME, for coming. We've had such a wonderful conversation. And to you watching, thank you so much for tuning in. This has been an amazing show. This is Rubbin Minds. My name is Hero Daniels. And until we catch you next week, same time, same station, stay safe. Bye for now.